Hey good people, this is your NI Dom, back with another YouTube reflection, and this is a personal journal for contemplative people looking to think, grow, and have impact in the world. So hey, just finished listening to some content from the Personality Hacker from 2017 about TE and TI, extroverted thinking and introverted thinking. And it's content that I've taken in before, but because I've been on this kick where I'm trying to really understand who I am in intimate spaces, I know who I am professionally, but I'm really just trying to understand more about how I perform intimacy, and naturally I'm interested in how those cognitive functions show up, and I'm really curious about what does TE look like in intimate spaces? And I can't say that the content that I got from the husband and wife is what I call the Personality Hacker. I call them the husband and wife team. I can't say that that piece of content really answered my question. I think it gave me more questions, to be honest with you. But that's why I went to that content, because I'm trying to better understand how to engage. I'm better trying to understand intimacy as it relates to me, and then naturally I want to strengthen my capacity for intimacy. And I have some really questionable ways that I show up in intimate spaces, and I'm trying to figure out, is it questionable because it's something that I'm doing that's wrong, or is it questionable just because that's just naturally who I am? As a as an INTJ, it's just going to look different on me. And I think that's where I'm at. I'm trying to better understand my relationship to intimacy as it relates to the cognitive functions. And I'm trying to figure out if it's something that I'm doing wrong, or I just need to accept that I'm not going to be able to do intimacy the way other people do it. So I don't have that answer. I don't have that answer now that I've gone to that content, but I just wanted to set context. That's why I went to the context. And so now that I've gone there, I have some additional questions and about some other things. And so I'm here to process those additional questions. If you're new to this project, this is a personal journal where I process my inner and my outer worlds. I do so by using personality theory. The two theories that I use the most are the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram. Pushing those two systems together, I identify as an INTJ 8. I have a number of other disclaimers that I give in my long-form reflection, which happens on the podcast. But for the short-form reflection here on YouTube, I just want to let the listener know that this project is unedited and is unscripted. To know more about it or me, feel free to go to my website at yournidom.wordpress.com. So I don't usually do housekeeping in the short form reflections, but I do want to say that in my car, and I just finished driving. So the first 5 minutes I was riding. I shouldn't say I was driving. I was riding. And now I'm parked and I'm ready to jump. I wanted to let you know, but I am in my car. And I want to just jump right into these questions. So I've taken in this content before from the husband and wife team. And I mean, I took it in a long time ago, so it doesn't hurt to revisit it. And some questions are coming up for me. But let me tell you what was reinforced. Let me tell you what the content that I just listened to again today, what it did for me, where it reinforced prior understanding. It didn't question prior understanding. It reinforced it. And that's in the area of, I'm going to call it caginess. So I was once accused of being cagey. And so what I understand that to be is that I don't share information. I'm very guarded with information for 1,000 reasons. It's not even just a little bit, not just a few. There are 1,000 reasons why I am guarded with information. And so about a couple of years ago, I was on the dating app and just trying to do that. Y'all, I mean, if you follow the project, you all know that I keep trying it. That's a whole separate conversation. But anywho, I was on a dating app, and so I met this person, and we had been it wasn't like, there definitely weren't fireworks, but it was something to do. So we were talking, and then the individual just kind of like was like, "You're cagey." And I was like, "What?" Because they would ask me a lot of questions about me, and I didn't want to reveal it. So I don't think that this is the type of I don't think this is the kind of information that the husband and wife team is talking about when they say it's reserved. But it is an example of how I am reserved with information. All right, so that's personal information. But I also am guarded with my professional information in particular areas. And this leads perfectly into the question that I have. Because the way that the husband and wife team talked about TE and TI was as though they were like these clear, delineated functions. Let me say it differently, or better, hopefully, that they were these clear, delineated traits. And I think sometimes those of us who are really into Myers-Briggs, in love with the cognitive function, I worry that sometimes we forget that underneath those functions are what's called traits. So underneath TE and TI is what? Thinking. It's the T. See, the E and the I just gives it what I call direction, or they call it attitude. It's in what direction is it that thinking going? Is it going outward or is it going inward? Hold on one second. And in that regard, it can look like they're separate because they're clearly in separate directions. And as a result of that direction and the attitude, it can manifest differently, or it has a different flavor. I'm not challenging that at all, right? I clearly know I'm a TE first. I'm a dominant TE. Well, I'm not a dominant TE. I'm an auxiliary TE as an INTJ. But I clearly know that I lean towards TE. But I also know that I have TI tendencies. And when they were talking in this episode, they didn't, in my opinion, account for the overlap enough. Now, more than likely, they didn't account for the overlap because they were trying to make a case for the distinction to help people to determine if they're TE or TI. So I'm not being critical in that way. But I'm saying for me, what it did is it caused a little confusion because I'm like, when they started talking about TI, I was like, oh, I do that. Oh, I do that. So instead of it giving me like solidly, oh, I'm solidly TE, no, I was like, oh, well, let me go back to the freaking drawing board, right? Am I TI? Because a lot of when this lady is talking about TI, a lot of that, I do. Not all of it, though. Like every single thing that they talked about for TE, I do that. Everything. So I don't have the relationship with TI in terms of how they explain it. I can't say, oh, everything you said about TI, I do. No. But what I can say is I do a lot of that. So there's no current framework, in my opinion, that I have access to that would explain that overlap. I don't hear it enough, and I would love to hear that. So I have two ways, and I'm going to create a theory about how that's possible. And if you're listening to me and you have a better way to explain it, please hit me up. Or if you think I have it wrong, hit me up. And see, that's the perfect example. See, because if I'm understanding TI wants clean information, wants accurate information. And so as I'm going through this process, talking to you all, if I'm not explaining this right, if I don't have it done correctly, I want to know. Do I want to know because I'm TI? Or do I want to know because I respect accurate and valid information? I respect it. Now, I feel like I got three things I'm trying to say all at once. So forgive me if I'm sounding disjointed. Okay, I got to put you guys on hold again. I think for me, I do want accurate information. I do want information that I can trust. That's what they say about TI. Yes. But that is not my end game. And it's so funny because I call that, excuse my language, but I call it masturbatory. And I often use that language in my field of work, particularly around equity work. Because a lot of people that I know who are equity officers, equity allies, equity champions, equity soldiers, it is so irritating to me because they are, in my opinion, they want to sit around and have these robust discussions about equity. They want to get into a book study about equity. And that drives, I'm not even going to say it drives me insane. It makes me aggressive. It really does. Obviously not physically aggressive, but it makes me aggressive the way I'm understanding aggression on the receiving end of my personality. I just had somebody last night. I said something to them and they said it was aggressive. I was like, what? You're calling that aggressive? Girl, bye. But anyway, so let me lean into that. When I hear people doing equity work as an act of information sharing, information intake and output, it is annoying to me. Okay? Just so you know. So then I would say to those people, because I've done this and like I've had 2 years where I was actually paid to do equity work. Like I'm an equity soldier, period. I bring equity work into everything I'm doing. But there were 2 years where I was paid by 2 employers to do this thing, quote, called equity. And what I found frustrating, where I said I'll never do another equity job again, what I found frustrating is that those people wanted to just talk about it. And I'm like, yo, this is just masturbatory. Yeah, you're talking about a thing, but what do you do? What's the so what? What's the impact? How are you changing lives? This is just making you feel, in my opinion, this is just making you feel good because you, as according to Antonia, if I got it right, because you're making sure it's clean. You're making sure it's accurate. Who gives a bleep about the accuracy when people in the world, their lives are depending on us getting it right to do something with it. So I think that's a really good example of this delineation between TE and TI. It feels, for me, when I'm dealing with somebody on the TI end, it's masturbatory. And what I'm saying is I don't lean into TI like that. Yeah, I do. There's a lot about what she said about TI. That's me all day. But that's not my end result. My end result's like, what we gonna do with this? And I did say, what we gonna do? That's, if you were new to me, then that's just, you need to know I'm in my native register. It's all another conversation, right? I'm educated, but anyway, that's another conversation. But what we gonna do with this? I could also say that's Southern too. I'm in the South right now. So I want that information that allows me to do something with it. So that's, I would say that is just hard. So the framework I use that I make sense with the TI part of me is that it's 6 for me. So if I don't study this guy named John BeeBe, the only time I understand about John BeeBe's work is through the Personality Hacker. So I don't even know if I have this right. But if I do have it right, he promotes a 6-function model, whereas Myers-Briggs deals with a 4-function model. And in that 6-function model, then TI, I have access to it. You guys, I have time. I'm running out of time. I gotta go. There's so much more I want to say. Maybe I'll take it into the podcast when I resume the podcast in February. You guys, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you. Let me say this. If this reflection has had any value for you, please give it a heart, thumbs up, or a like. If this conversation about delineating between TE and TI, but mostly understanding the overlap. If it relates to a conversation you've had in the world, please take this link and share it. You can find me on my website, youranidom.wordpress.com. I'd love to hear from you. You guys, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you. Until I come back, be well. Bye.